Good morning. Good morning. We're 3 minutes before we start the programming, and just welcome. We're letting people in to the from the waiting room. So this will take a couple more minutes, but we'll start promptly at 10 o'clock. In the meantime, get used to your Zoom. We'll go through a few steps on before we get into the heart of the conversation today. We'll do a quick review on the Zoom, but welcome to those of you who are coming in now. We expect to have close to 40 to 50 people on this call. If you're sitting in Boston, you're sitting in an overcast, cool day. Quite different from 2 weeks ago when it was around 99 degrees in the bright sun.
Do you want us on mute?
Yeah, we're going to mute everybody once we start. And we'll unmute you if you want to speak during the after the breakouts. Good morning, people. As you join, I'm seeing some of you join. Others of you I can't see, but I hear you coming in through the little ding in the background. My name is Mary Gunn. I'm with Encore Boston Network. We'll be starting very shortly. We have a very special guest here today, Lester Strong, a good friend and colleague, who will be leading us through a wonderful conversation in a few minutes. We are recording this session, and it will be available for viewing tomorrow. If you don't want to be seen during the video, just click your video off. Bottom left-hand corner of your screen, you see Stop Video. That will allow you to participate without being seen. But we'd love for you to be seen if you can. It's nice to see faces. I see a number of familiar faces. Good morning, Cynthia. I see you.
Good morning, Mary. Nice to see you again, and everyone else, and welcome, Mr. Strong. Look forward to this.
We will be starting in 1 minute. We're doing the final countdown here. People are still coming in. Right now we have about 30 people on board, and there's still people will be joining us, but we will start precisely at 11, and it is precisely 11, so I'm going to start now. Welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Mary Gunn. I'm a board member with Encore Boston Network. If this is your first time with us, thank you for joining us. Today's session is called How to Help Heal Racism in America, a conversation with Lester Strong, who is our very special guest today. I'm going to run through a few basic Zoom techniques for all of us, and then I will turn it over to my colleague, Brent Atchison, who will introduce our presenter in the morning. Hello, Brenda.
Hi, Mary, and welcome to everyone. I'm really excited about today's session, and I hope you are too, and I'm excited to have Lester here with us. So I'll let you continue on because we got, I think, a lot to talk about.
We got a lot to talk about. Thanks, Brenda. The session today will be an hour and a half long, and it will be recorded, as I mentioned. Before I turn it over to Brenda, let's run through a few things so that you're all familiar with your Zoom and your screen. The first thing I want you to do is to go down to the bottom left-hand part of your screen. You'll see a mute button. On and off to mute yourself. We will be muting all of you from our end until after the breakout groups. When we come out of the breakout groups, if you'd like to speak, just click the mute button and you'll be heard. Video sharing is the next icon on there. This, as I mentioned, this is going to be recorded today. If you don't want your picture to be seen, click the video button and you will still be able to participate. We just won't see your face. We'd love to see everybody's faces, but that's the button you would click if you don't want to be seen. And then towards the middle of your bottom of your screen is a chat button. And this is how a lot of sharing happens during these types of events. This is how we can communicate with each other during the conversation. So if you click on the chat button right now, we're going to give you all a little test. Just type in your name and what city you're from. Next to the mute button, next to the chat button is is the reactions over to the far right, the reaction icon. If you click that, you'll see a thumbs up or an applause sign. You can just click that if you want to make your position known on what we're saying right now during the conversation. So it is now my pleasure to turn it over to my dear friend and my dear colleague, Bren Atchison, who's also a board member of Encore Boston Network.
Thank you, Mary. I have to say, it truly is an honor and a privilege for me to be able to introduce Lester Strong today for our conversation. I think many of you may remember Lester, as I do, as a local TV host here in the Boston area. But there's so much more about Lester and his distinguished career and experiences that he's going to bring today to us in our conversation about race in America. So I want to take a moment and just share with you some of Lester's other experiences. Lester Strong is co-founder of Elder Odyssey, a workshop series that is intended to guide older or mature adults into elderhood by giving them the tools to effectively navigate later stages of their life. He's a former CEO of AARP Foundation Experience Corps. They service 30,000 elementary students across the United States per year who struggle with reading. Lester is also, as I mentioned, an experienced TV producer as well as journalist, not only here in the Boston area, but also in New York City, Atlanta, and Charlotte. So he comes to us with an extensive media background. And he's got more than 4 decades, I don't want to share your age, Lester, but more than 4 decades of experience as a student in Eastern philosophies and meditation. He's a graduate, Lester's a graduate of the Davidson College and Columbia University's Business School's Institute for Nonprofit Management. So I welcome Lester today. As with all of you, I am looking so forward to our conversation and how to help heal racism in America. So welcome, Lester.
Thanks so much, Brenda. And thanks to Mary and Doug and Kendra and Pat and the board. Thank you so much for the invitation and the opportunity to have this amazing conversation about race in America, which is for all of us obviously come to the fore as a critical and perhaps even a pivotal moment in our history. So I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. The way I like to start sessions like this, and I hope you'll bear with me, is I like to start with a threefold intention, because for me, it kind of sets the framework and the groundwork for how we will be with one another today. And there are 3 parts to this intention. The first part is that I like to invite one of my favorite teachers in the room. And I want to invite you to do likewise. And this doesn't have to be a formal teacher, you know, someone you had in high school or college, but it could be a friend, a brother, a work colleague. It's someone who inspires you. And it's someone who really inspires you to be your best self. So I like to bring my teacher into the room to remind me to bring my best self into the room. So I hope you'll give that a few moments of thought and who that person might be. The second piece of the intention is to say that we, for the next 90 minutes, we are going to be one another's teachers. As we have this conversation, as we share our life experiences and our insights, we literally become one another's teachers. And then the third aspect of the intention is to approach our conversation today with an open mind, an open heart, and complete defenselessness. And when I say defenselessness, I mean that none of us should feel any obligation to defend our point of view or our life choices. Because what we are offering for the greater good of the group. So it's an act of generosity that we're demonstrating when we share what we think, what we feel, and what our life experience has been. So that's the threefold intention that I'd love to remind myself, and I love to share with all of the participants, so that we can kind of be of one accord as we go through our time together. Now, the second part of this is that in order to kind of give emphasis to that threefold intention, I have a Tibetan singing bowl that is my constant companion. Here it is. You can't see it, it's black, it won't show up. But what I do is that I strike the bowl 3 times for each one of those intentions. And as I do that, I want to invite you to do an exercise that I call sound surfing. Sound surfing. And I call it that because when I strike the singing bowl, it's going to be a sound wave. And what I'm inviting you to do is simply to follow that sound. Stay with that sound until it dissolves into silence. And then stay in the silence until I strike the singing bowl again. Okay, everybody with me? So I'm going to do it for 3 times. And I invite you, if you're comfortable, I invite you to close your eyes, because it will help you focus on the sound as it diminishes, which will really give even greater impact to the experience. Okay, we're ready? Here we go. So now we'll take 3 deep breaths. And the way we take the deep breath is that we will inhale through the nose and out through the mouth. Let's begin. Inhale through the nose, out through the mouth. Inhale through the nose, out through the mouth. Inhale through the nose, out through the mouth. And when it's comfortable for you, you can open your eyes. Hope that felt relaxing, centering. That's the goal. That's the purpose. Again, it's really great to be with you today. Normally what my colleague, my partner, Ev Mann, and I do in these sessions is that we love to have people kind of introduce themselves and talk about why they've decided to participate in this particular workshop. And with there being about 40 of us, that's not quite possible today. But what I would like to invite is a few of you to do this. First, tell us your name. Second, tell us what you think the state of race is in America. Not a long dissertation, just kind of a short synopsis of where you think race in America is today. And then third, why you decided to take this workshop today. We'd love to hear from you. So if you can electronically raise your hand under the participants box. You'll see that it has a raised hand, the blue hand to the far left. And if you open the box, you'll see the raised hand on the far left. You just click on that, and we'll be able to, Kendra, who's our Hawkeye, will be able to find you. Am I going to have to call on somebody?
It looks like Patricia. Patricia, are you there?
Patricia, great. Hi, Patricia. Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself.
My name is Pat.
Okay.
There she is.
and
There you
I'm
are.
I'm from Amherst. And I think what comes up for me is breaking hearts and breaking open.
Excellent. What made you decide to take the workshop today?
I'm interested in strategies for people who look like me to for next steps.
Wonderful.
Around accountability, institutional accountability, I think.
Wonderful. Pat, thank you. Thank you so much. Anyone else? Who else would like to?
Cynthia, I see your hands up.
Okay.
Good morning. Yes, in terms of race, I feel that the topic of racism needs to stay on the table. And I thought that, but I wasn't always verbalizing it that way. I heard it a couple of weeks ago when I was on another Encore workshop. So that stuck with me. Also, for me, what racism is, or what race is, it's divided. You know, that's all I can say about racism. It's still divided, and it's so unfair. And the reason that I wanted to join today is that why I know a few of our participants today, and I miss you all, Mary, Kendra, Helen. And then I'm a new member for an individual member for Encore, and also for you, Mr. Strong. I used to watch you on the television news channel here in Boston. I live in Dorchester, so
You got a good memory.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Cynthia.
You're very welcome.
Who else?
Steve? Steve, are you there?
Yes, Steve from Waltham. And what comes to mind is my sense is that I think many of us are not really aware of what it really feels like for people from other races, backgrounds, you know, the way they were brought up. And in some cases, I think we haven't really given a lot of thought to, for our own self, what our feelings are about racism and what that means. And I'm here because as much as anything, I want to just, listen and learn from each other. And it's a process, and it's going to take time. So, and I really appreciate your leadership and, in coordinating this.
Steve, thank you. Thank you so much. Let's do one more person.
There's someone, their name is Hudso. Are you there? I think you're muted, but I can unmute you. I'll try to unmute you. You see if you're there. If not, you're just playing with the hands up.
Hello.
Yes, Helene. Hello.
Hello, this is Helene Simmons. Can you hear me? I can't hear you.
Yes, we can hear you. Okay. Helene, I think you, the electronic goblins have gotten you, I think. So we'll try to come back to you. Is there one other person?
There's Roberta.
Roberta.
Roberta, you there?
Yes, I am.
There she is.
Okay. In terms of the state I feel like we're in right now, I've thought a lot about this. In some ways, I feel like it's a paradoxical state, and outwardly and probably inwardly as well. You know, in some ways, I feel like, what's going on in the world is horrible and frightening. And, what's going to happen next is really scary. And on the other hand, I feel like, oh my God, this could be such a wonderful opportunity for things to change. And that's obviously the side that I feel like I want to be on. And why I'm on this call is I've always thought of myself as a liberal person, but I think we all have underlying hidden prejudices, and I really want to explore that for myself. So the more that I learn, I think the better I will know who I am and where I am in this whole crazy time.
Roberta, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here and your willingness to lend your voice to this effort. Thank you all for that. What I'd love to do now is to share with you a video. This video literally just happened yesterday. Some of you may know that this has been a watershed moment in sports, where the NBA has suspended some of its basketball games, and that protest has spilled over to Major League Baseball, Major League Soccer, and highly ranked professional tennis player has refused to play in light of the shooting of Jacob Blake in Kenosha, Wisconsin. So it's really spreading in a way that is history making in terms of it ever affecting sports in such a dramatic way. And the soundbite that you're going to hear is from the coach of the Los Angeles Clippers, Doc Rivers. Some of you in Boston may remember Doc, who was a coach for the Celtics for a period of time. But I think he offers us a perspective that really gives us a sense of where the level of concern and turmoil that exists in our country right now. So Kendra, if you would show that.
Just watching the Republican convention, and they're spewing this fear, right? Like, all you hear is Donald Trump and all of them talking about fear. We're the ones getting killed. We're the ones getting shot. We're the ones that we're denied to live in certain communities. We've been hung, we've been shot, and all you do is keep hearing about fear. It's amazing to me why we keep loving this country and this country does not love us back. And it's really so sad. Like, I should just be a coach. And it's so often reminded of my color. You know, it's just really sad. We got to do better. But we got to demand better. Like, it's funny. We protest and they send riot guards, right? They send people in riot outfits. They go to Michigan with guns and they're spitting on cops and nothing happens. The training has to change. in the police force. The unions have to be taken down in the police force. My dad was a cop. I believe in good cops. We're not trying to defund the police and take all their money away. We're trying to get them to protect us, just like they protect everybody else. I didn't want to talk about it before the game because it's so hard, like, to just keep watching it. That video, if you watch that video, you don't need to be black to be outraged. You need to be American and outraged. And how dare the Republicans talk about fear? We're the ones that need to be scared. We're the ones having to talk to every black child. What white father has to give his son a talk about being careful if you get pulled over? It's just ridiculous. And it just keeps going. There's no charges. Breonna Taylor, no charges, nothing. All we're asking is you live up to the Constitution. That's all we're asking for everybody, for everyone. Thank you.
There's a lot in there. A lot in there. Understand that my interest in showing that video clip has nothing to do with politics. Absolutely nothing to do with politics. What I hope we get from it is an understanding of the dimensions and the complexity of this issue of race and racism in this country. And the other thing is that I hope you take away from this is that it can be extraordinarily overwhelming to try to deal with the multiple facets of racism in this country. I was reading a New York Times article this morning, and in the article it talked about Hurricane Laura. It talked about the coronavirus. It talked about the protests in Wisconsin and in Oregon. It talked about the recession in the economy. And it struck me that literally every crisis that is occurring in the United States at this moment all disproportionately impacts people of color. So if there is any issue or question about whether there is a systemic pattern to racial discrimination in this country, all one only has to do is simply follow the trend lines, and they all lead back to poor people and people of color. So again, my point is that it can be very overwhelming if we try to take on every issue and every kind of detail and nuance. And that's not what I'm hoping we will do today and in the 6-week workshop that we're going to be performing starting on the 24th of September. What I hope we can do today is 2 things. Number one is to try to get a better sense of why racism exists at all. And second, what is my individual responsibility to offset racism in this country? So my hope and my goal for us today is to really begin to address those 2 critical questions. Obviously, we won't answer them completely, but at least we can have a conversation around it. So to start that, I wanted to start with a wonderful Native American allegory. And in this allegory, there is a father talking to his son, how ironic. And he's saying to his son that we all have two wolves at war inside each and every one of us. One is light and one is darkness. And there is this ferocious battle that is occurring. And the son asks, who's winning? And the father said, the one that you feed is the one who is winning. And that really sets up this dichotomy that is contained in every human being, this tension, this struggle between love, whatever we interpret that to be, and fear, well, however you want to define it. But that is the struggle. And the more that we struggle with fear, the more we create the other, the more that we create that which we are afraid of. And that which we are afraid of, we want to separate, we want to control, we want to diminish, we want to destroy, because we feel that it threatens us in a very direct way. Whereas love, at its core, at its essence, is supportive and uplifting and rewarding. But how does one offer that kind of support and kindness when one feels threatened? There's this metaphysical principle that says that love and fear cannot occupy the same place at the same time. So we consciously have to decide, am I going to operate from a place of fear, or am I going to operate from a place of love? When I was a reporter, I spent about 8 years in Atlanta, Georgia, in the 70s and the 80s. So that kind of tells you how old I am. And during that time, I had the rare and wonderful opportunity to meet some of the giants of the civil rights movement: Coretta Scott King, Andy Young, Julian Bond, and John Lewis. And there were many, many, many more. C.T. Vivian comes to mind. And I jokingly say to some of my friends that that's where I got my PhD in the civil rights movement, because I had this extraordinary access to these amazing individuals. And it was such a gift that even to this moment continues to serve me in such a powerful and such a direct way. Doug asked me a question. He asked, so what's the difference between the civil rights movement then and what's going on right now? Well, it's interesting. I think that what is different is social media and technology. Without an iPhone, we wouldn't be hearing about the Breonna Taylors and the Jacob Blakes and the George Floyds. We wouldn't know about them. So this issue of racial police brutality would be a concept, and it wouldn't be very real in our lives. And of course, social media that then accelerates the ability to dispense that kind of information literally within seconds. So that's what I think is different. What I think is the same is this issue that we've just talked about. This issue of, do I operate from a place of love or do I operate from a place of fear? I think that's consistent. That is very, very consistent. So one of the things that I learned from those amazing civil rights leaders is that they never entered into a protest or a demonstration without careful thought, careful reflection on how and what they wanted to do. And they understood that to buck the system in the way that they were going to buck the system, that they would be subjected to beatings, be spat upon and jailed, and even worse, some of them might even be killed. They understood that. So they understood that the only way that they were going to be successful was to be able to accept the abuse that was going to come at them, to appeal to the conscience of America. And I think we could all agree that the movement that we've seen, the progress that we've seen in this country, has been as a result of that painstaking consideration and that nonviolent response to the kind of riotous bigotry that really came to those individuals, and we owe them an extraordinary debt. So now it's our turn. Now we are in the midst of what is clearly a new reckoning. And the question then becomes, what will our response be? Can we move out of our comfort zone in a way that will enable us and allow us to really have significant and important impact in this pivotal time in American history and in our own personal lives? And that can only happen if we are willing to personally change. Again, a metaphysical principle is that you cannot give what you do not have. And unless you stand from a place of genuine care and concern for all whom you meet, then our ability to really demonstrate that care and concern for any issue is significantly diminished. So it means that if we really want to make a difference, we have to first make a difference within ourselves. We have to be the example. You can't ask people to be peaceful. What's important is that you must bring the peace with you in order to be able to generate peace. So we have an exercise for everyone today. Kendra, if you put up the questions for the exercise. So here's what I'd like to invite you to do. If everyone does not have a pen and some sheets of paper, please go find some. You're going to need it for this exercise. So here's the exercise. First, I want you to write down 3 highly important qualities of love as you understand love. What are those qualities? So write down those qualities of love. Second, ask yourself, is it possible for me to exercise these qualities of love with everyone that I meet and in every situation that I encounter? Now, keep in mind, that means with people that you don't like, people that you're intimidated by, people who don't like you, who deplore you, yet can you demonstrate these 3 qualities of love and compassion to each and every one of them? Third question is, if you were able to do that, how do you think you'd feel? And then the final question is, am I willing to even try? Would I be willing to try? And if yes, why would I be willing to try this? And if the answer is no, why would I not be willing to try this? So those are the 4 questions that we're inviting you to step into. We're going to give, Kendra is going to give us 10 minutes to answer these questions. And then once we come back, we're going to break you into discussion groups to have a conversation about these particular items. So before you start, does anyone have any questions about the exercise? All right. So please begin, and we'll see you in 10 minutes. All right. So welcome back, everybody. I hope you found it fruitful. I hope you found the conversations fruitful. We can do it one of two ways. If you did select someone to really kind of be a spokesperson for your group, would those people raise their electronic hand on participant? And let's see if we can get some responses.
I don't know how to raise my hand.
Okay, well, go
But you're
for it.
physically raising your hand, so I guess.
Go for it. Yeah.
Oh, you want me to go
Yes,
first?
please go ahead. Mhm.
Well, we had a very, for 30 minutes, an excellent conversation among ourselves. And we all described our definitions of love and qualities of love, and somewhere they were all pretty much the same around understanding and acceptance and reciprocity and equality and being able to share. There were some discussion about what stops us from loving everybody, because we don't. There are people we don't like. What stops us from loving them? And a number of us replied that we would be afraid of be afraid of being what's the word I want to use? Prevent us from trying to love. The anxiety and the fear would prevent us from trying to love everyone, that we might feel rejected if we try to love somebody that we haven't tried to love before. And I think people also said, this is, Greg particularly really honed in on, this is an inflection point in the United States, this moment that we're in right now. And while it's taken us 401 years to get to this inflection point, we're hopeful that from it, change can happen. And there are people in my group, please speak up if I didn't, there was this concept of, if we were able to love everyone, then we'd feel more complete, that we would feel freer in a sense, that we're not struggling with hatred because we're not holding on to the hatred, we're holding on to love. It's what you said, Lester, about feeding light or dark. And so I think that's pretty much what we discussed.
It's beautiful. You reminded me of book by Brene Brown, who talks about anxiety and fear and vulnerability.
Yes,
and
that was
what keeps us from really reaching out and extending ourselves to other people is this fear of being rejected and fear of being hurt in some way, or maybe I don't have enough love to give to everybody, so I've got to, contain it to my family and friends so that I have enough to go around. I mean, so this is why we call it radical loving, because it forces us to understand that if we're going to heal both ourselves and our community and our country and our world, that we've got to grow. We've got to grow our love, and we've got to go beyond this sense of fear and vulnerability that keeps us small. And that if we want to understand why racism exists, we've got to understand how it's happening in each one of us. And that's really the work. That's really the work. Mary, thank you. Thank you so much. Now, someone on chat, I think it was Jenny.
Jenny from Boston.
Yeah, Jenny. So do you want to go ahead?
Sure. Our group was pretty similar in how we looked at love. Caring was certainly a common word, empathy and compassion and connection. Is it possible to do that? I think, as Mary was just saying, that anger and hurt are factors that can prevent you from doing that. But I think most of us know that when we do act in love, it does feel good. We've all, I'm sure, experienced that. The willing to try piece is a really tough one because we slipped a bit into the experiences that we're having with and I don't want to be overly political here, but concerns about the lack of desire to understand what's driving the protests across the country, not to focus entirely on squashing them and stopping them and shutting them down. We're not hearing enough language that says, why is it happening and what can we do about it from leadership? And that it tends to feed some of that anger and some of that difficulty in trying to understand, and harder to reach out and reach out in love because we're all kind of angry. And part of the anger, I think, comes with growing awareness of how deep and systemic the issues are. Then the more you hear particulars about that, at least for me personally, the more angry you can become about that. And it becomes harder to find that loving part. And I guess the last thing I'd say is that in some workshops we've had, there's been a emphasis that if you don't accept wrongdoing, and if you're not able to acknowledge it and forgive it, then it's hard to move on and change it. And so that piece of becoming aware of that and accepting it and forgiving it and apologizing for it, I think is a really important step. And if we continue to say, make America great again, we're not accepting that we can be great, but we haven't been so great in a lot of ways. And we need to face that, and we need to work on how we are going to become better.
Yeah. Boy, there's so much in there, Jenny. Thank you. So much to really unpack. Thank you all so much. I mean, we could go on for quite a while with this discover. I just saw Pat Spence over there. Hey, Pat Spence, how are you? Good to see you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Nice to see you.
Old buddy of mine. Nice
and we're working on the same themes. We're still working on the same themes. We're going to keep going forever.
There you go. So thank you so much for being a part of this. Thank you for sharing your insights and your great wisdom and your concern for how do we make all of this better. Again, our strong intention is to create this 6 weeks of workshops where we can go even more deeply in many of the topics that we've discussed here today, and come away with very, very specific tools that we can use to both keep ourselves whole so that we don't become the monster that we're trying to defeat, but by the same time really affect change in the world and in the communities that we live in. That's the work of the 6 weeks, and I hope many of you will join us. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mary.
Thank you, Lester. We owe you a ton of thanks for participating, leading this discussion today. I'm very, very grateful to you. People on the conversation today and those who registered today will get an email from me tomorrow that has a couple of resources in it, including a link to register for the 6-part series that Lester and one of his colleagues is going to lead. There is going to be a modest fee for this 6-week session, and it's greatly reduced from what its normal fee is for Encore members. You'll get the link if you're interested. It'll be I'm looking forward to it 6 weeks of these kinds of in-depth discussions with at the end, hopefully having a feeling better about where we are at personally and as a nation, and what we can do to combat some of these horrible things. So I want to thank all of you for participating today. Kendra, shout out to you for being our tech host, co-host, Brenda for co-hosting with me, for all of you for joining. And if you have any questions, tomorrow you'll see my email address and my phone number. Feel free to call me. I hope you all have a wonderful day. And please, in the last minute that we have, feel free to put your comments in the chat box.
Mary, may I end it all with a great poem that Doug sent me?
Sure.
This is a poem by L.R. Knost, I think it's pronounced, and it seems so appropriate for our conversation today. It reads, "Do not be dismayed by the brokenness of the world. All things break, and all things can be mended, not with time, as they say, but with intention. So go, love intentionally, extravagantly, unconditionally. The broken world waits in darkness for the light that is you." Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Till next time. Thank you.